I'll fix your fence for free, but I have one condition. Tonight, I'll sleep between the two of you. Sam had always been known in the neighborhood as the quiet, helpful man who seemed to appear whenever someone needed a hand. He wasn't loud or boastful, but there was something about his presence that made people trust him instantly. On this bright Saturday morning, he was walking along the side of his small yard when his eyes fell on the Smith's old fence. The fence had been leaning for months, its wooden boards worn and splintered. Some of them had fallen entirely, leaving gaps through which their dog could wander out or stray animals could sneak in. Sam had noticed it before, but today something about it made him stop and stare. He imagined the Smiths struggling to repair it themselves, John with his busy job and Emily juggling household chores and the kids. Sam knew it wasn't easy to find time or energy for something like this. He walked over to the Smiths' front porch. Emily was sitting there, sipping her morning coffee, her eyes tired but bright. She smiled politely when she saw him. John appeared from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. "Morning, Sam," John said. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Morning," Sam replied. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded toward the fence. "That fence, it looks like it's about ready to fall completely. I can fix it for you if you want." Emily raised her eyebrows, surprised. "Fix it?" "But that sounds expensive. We can't really afford a contractor right now."
Sam shrugged. "I'm not asking for payment."
"I can do it for free. I've got some extra wood and tools at home. I just need to make sure it's done right." John frowned slightly, studying Sam. "You're sure? That's a lot of work, you know. And we wouldn't want you to get hurt." Sam smiled gently. "I'm careful. Don't worry about me."
Emily and John exchanged a look. They wanted to say yes immediately, but before they could, Sam added something that made them both blink.
"There's one condition," Sam said, his tone calm but serious. "Tonight I'll sleep in between the two of you while I work on the fence." The couple froze. Emily set her coffee down, her fingers trembling slightly. "Hey, what do you mean sleep in between us?" she asked. Sam explained. "I mean, I'll set up a small tent right along the fence line. That way I can work early in the morning, and I'll also make sure nothing happens to your property at night. Sometimes animals sneak in, sometimes things get stolen. It's safer for both of us if I'm here." John raised an eyebrow. "A tent? Right here?" "Yes," Sam said simply. "Just for one night. I promise I'll be respectful and stay out of your way. I just want to make sure the repair goes smoothly and nothing gets damaged or stolen while I work." Emily looked at John, her brow furrowed. "Do you think that's safe?" she whispered. John shrugged. "I guess if he's really going to help us, maybe it's okay. He doesn't seem like a bad guy." Sam noticed their hesitation and smiled reassuringly. "Batak."
"I understand if it sounds strange, but I only want to help."
That's all. After a few minutes of quiet discussion, John nodded. "All right, Sam. We trust you." "Bah. You can fix the fence, and the tent is fine. Thank you." "We really appreciate this." Emily smiled softly, still feeling a little nervous but relieved at the same time. "Thank you, Sam. It means a lot." Sam smiled back. "No problem. I'll start this afternoon. I'll bring all the materials, and we'll have this fence fixed in no time." That afternoon, Sam arrived with a truck full of wood, nails, and tools. Emily and John watched as he unloaded everything carefully, placing each piece of wood along the yard. He worked with quiet determination, measuring twice and cutting once, making sure every plank was perfect. Emily felt a strange mix of curiosity and admiration. She had lived next to Sam for years and never really known much about him, but watching him work now, she realized how skilled and patient he was. John, too, occasionally helped by holding planks or handing him tools, and soon the tension of the morning melted into laughter and light conversation. By evening, the fence was half repaired and Sam was ready to set up his tent. Emily felt nervous again as he unfolded it near the fence line. "It's just a tent, right?" she asked cautiously. "Just a tent," Sam confirmed. "I'll be right here." "Nothing will happen to your property tonight." As night fell, the quiet of the neighborhood deepened. The stars shone above, and the faint sound of crickets filled the air. Emily and John went inside, occasionally glancing out the window to make sure Sam was okay. Psst. They could see the small glow of a lantern in the tent and knew he was safe. Inside, Emily couldn't help but think about Sam.
Who was he really? He had been living in the neighborhood for years, always quiet, always helping, yet they had never known much about his life.
Something about his calm confidence made her feel safe, and at the same time she felt a strange curiosity she couldn't explain. John, on the other hand, was more practical. He thought about the work done today and the fence, and he was grateful that Sam had stepped in. He still found the tent arrangement unusual, but he understood Sam's reasoning and trusted him.
Around midnight, a sudden rustling sound came from the bushes near the edge of the yard. Emily and John both froze, unsure of what it was.
They peeked through the window and saw the faint outline of a raccoon moving near the fence. The animal paused, sniffed around, then moved away without causing any damage.
Emily let out a quiet sigh of relief. "I guess having Sam here was a good idea," she whispered.
"Bear." John nodded. He's looking out for us, even in the middle of the night." Meanwhile, in the tent, Sam smiled quietly to himself. He had seen this many times before. People hesitating to accept help, worried about what was unusual or different, but he had learned that kindness, patience, and honesty often changed hearts faster than anything else. As the night went on, Emily found herself thinking about how rare it was to meet someone like Sam. Someone so willing to help without expecting anything in return. She remembered small gestures from the past, like when he had helped elderly neighbors carry groceries or fixed a leaky pipe at another house just because he could.
He didn't seek recognition, yet his actions spoke louder than words.
By morning, the first light of dawn crept over the horizon. Birds began chirping, and the world slowly woke up. Sam emerged from his tent, stretching his arms. He looked over the fence he had been repairing and smiled. The work was solid, strong, and would last for years. Emily came outside, still in her robe, and handed him a cup of coffee. "Good morning, Sam. Looks like you did an amazing job," she said warmly. John stepped forward as well. "We can't thank you enough. This is more than we ever expected." Sam shook his head. "No need to thank me. I'm just glad it's done and that everything is safe." Emily hesitated for a moment, then asked softly, "Would you like to join us for breakfast?"
You stayed here all night, and you deserve something to eat. Sam smiled, appreciating the gesture.
Sure, I'd like that," he said, as they all sat down together on the porch, enjoying simple breakfast foods. The atmosphere felt lighter, warmer, and full of gratitude. The unusual night, the tent, the strange arrangement, it had all brought them closer in a way none of them expected. Emily realized that sometimes life's unexpected offers were not to be feared but embraced. John understood that trust could be built in moments of uncertainty, and Sam felt the quiet satisfaction of helping without expecting anything in return. That day, as Sam packed up his tools and prepared to leave, Emily waved him off. Back.
Thank you again, Sam. You've done more than just fix a fence. You've reminded us of the goodness in people.
Bet. Sam nodded, his usual quiet smile on his face. I'm happy to help. That's all anyone can do sometimes, help when it's needed. He walked back toward his house, leaving behind a repaired fence, grateful neighbors, and a story that the Smiths would remember for years. That small act of kindness, unusual though it seemed, had changed more than just the physical boundary between their properties. It had built trust, understanding, and the beginning of a lasting friendship. First, and as Emily looked at the strong, sturdy fence that separated their homes yet connected their lives in a new way, she couldn't help but smile. Perhaps, she thought, the world needed more people like Sam, quiet, selfless, and willing to go the extra mile, even if it meant spending a night in a small tent under the stars. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the Smiths' backyard took on a quiet, almost magical glow. The repaired fence stood strong and straight, each wooden plank perfectly in place, a silent testament to Sam's careful work. Emily and John had just finished tidying up and the smell of fresh-cut wood still lingered in the air. Best, Sam, carrying a small lantern, began setting up his tent between the two homes. It was a simple setup, a lightweight canvas tent anchored to the ground, but it seemed a little out of place in the middle of the backyard. Emily watched from the porch, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. She had never spent much time with Sam outside of brief greetings, and now here he was, planning to stay between their homes overnight. Are you sure this will be okay? Emily asked, her voice cautious but polite. Sam looked up from hammering a stake into the ground and smiled. It'll be fine. The tent will keep me safe from the wind, and I'll have the lantern for light. Patient. I just want to make sure nothing happens to the yard or the fence overnight. John, standing nearby with his hands in his pockets, nodded. I guess that makes sense. It's just unusual. Despair. But I trust you, Sam. Sam nodded back. I understand. It is unusual. But sometimes unusual things are necessary to make sure everything is safe. Sam climbed inside, arranged his small blanket and pillow, and lit a tiny battery-powered lantern. The warm light flickered softly, casting gentle shadows across the yard. From the porch, Emily and John could see his silhouette moving inside the tent. It was strange seeing him there, yet there was a sense of security in knowing he was close by. As night fell completely, the backyard grew quiet. The wind rustled through the trees, and distant sounds of neighbors settling in for the evening could be heard. Emily went inside, but she couldn't stop thinking about Sam and the unusual night ahead. She brewed a cup of tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, and peered through the window at the tent. The lantern inside gave off a soft glow, and she could see Sam moving around, arranging things neatly and checking the fence one last time before settling down. John joined her silently, holding his own mug of coffee. He leaned against the window frame and said quietly, "He's really something, isn't he?" Most people would never offer to do this without asking for anything in return. Emily nodded. I know. There's something about him. I've seen him helping others in small ways before, but I never realized how dedicated he is. It's inspiring. Psst. John smiled faintly. I think tonight will show us even more about him. Meanwhile, inside the tent, Sam lay down and stared at the soft glow of his lantern. He thought about the Smiths, how trusting they had been despite the unusual request. He had done this kind of thing before, helping neighbors without expecting anything in return. But this night felt different. There was a quiet tension in the air, a sense that this night could bring unexpected lessons, not just for the Smiths but for him as well. A few hours later, a faint noise rustled near the edge of the yard. Sam sat up immediately, his instincts alert. It was subtle at first, a soft scraping sound, as if something brushed against the fence. He quietly reached for his flashlight and stepped out of the tent, moving carefully along the fence line. Emily, who had woken up to the noise, peeked through the window. Her heart raced. "Is it an animal?" she whispered to herself. Sam shone the flashlight toward the sound and saw a raccoon trying to climb over the fence. He sighed quietly and approached slowly, speaking in a calm voice. "Hey there, little one. This isn't the place for you." The raccoon froze, sniffed the air, and then scampered back into the bushes. Emily let out a relieved breath, and John muttered softly, "Good thing he's here." We would have been scared out of our minds. After a few minutes of silence, Sam returned to his tent, carefully checking the fence one more time. The night was still, and for a moment it felt almost peaceful. But soon a new sound broke the quiet, a distant cry of an owl, followed by the wind rustling the trees. Sam smiled faintly. Nights like this reminded him of his childhood, when he would camp under the stars, listening to nature and learning patience. As he settled back into his blanket, he began thinking about the Smiths again. He had never shared much about his life with them, or anyone, really. But tonight, perhaps it was time to be a little more open. Inside the tent, he started talking softly, almost to himself. People, sometimes they don't see the truth of kindness. They see the gesture, but not the heart behind it. I've learned that over time. Maybe this night. Maybe they'll, Issue. Unbeknownst to him, Emily had quietly moved closer to the window, listening. She couldn't hear every word, but what she did hear stirred something inside her. There was a sincerity in his voice, a calm wisdom that she had never noticed before. Later she whispered to John, "I think he's different." "There's more to him than we know." John nodded slowly. "Yes, I feel it too. And somehow having him here, it doesn't feel awkward. It feels safe." Hours passed, and the three of them settled into an unusual rhythm. Emily and John kept glancing at the tent, sometimes with curiosity, sometimes with a quiet sense of comfort knowing Sam was nearby. Inside the tent, Sam thought about his own life, the struggles, the small victories, and the importance of helping others without expecting anything in return. At some point, Emily couldn't resist anymore. She quietly stepped outside, wrapped in her blanket, and walked toward the fence. Sam noticed her and smiled gently. "Bess, everything okay?" he asked softly. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the lantern light. "I just wanted to say thank you again for everything you're doing."
I don't know many people who would go this far.
Sam shook his head. "It's no problem. I've had help in my life too, and I know how important it is to pay it forward." For a while they stood there in silence, listening to the night sounds, the wind, the distant barking of a dog, the rustle of leaves.
It was a quiet moment, yet it carried a weight of understanding, a connection that went beyond words. "Do you sleep outside often?" Emily asked cautiously, trying to make conversation. Sam chuckled softly. Not always. But I've done it enough to know it can teach you patience. You notice things at night. The quiet, the stars, the small movements of nature. It makes you appreciate what's around you. Emily nodded thoughtfully. I never thought about it that way.
He went backside to check on them. John, who had come outside to check on them, joined the conversation.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? How one simple act, fixing a fence, can make us see things differently. Sometimes it's the small things that matter the most. People overlook them because they're too busy looking for something bigger, something grand. But small kindnesses, they change lives quietly.
The night continued, and Emily found herself asking more questions, curious about Sam's life, his experiences, and what had led him to be so selfless.
Sam answered with gentle honesty, sharing stories of neighbors he had helped, small lessons he had learned, and moments of struggle that shaped him. Each story revealed his character, his patience, and his understanding of human nature. By the time the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, Emily and John realized they had learned something important. Not just about Sam, but about themselves. They had been cautious, perhaps even a little suspicious at first, but now they understood the depth of trust, generosity, and quiet courage. As the sky turned pale pink and orange, Sam began packing up his small tent. Emily handed him a thermos of hot tea and John helped him carry a few tools back to his truck. "Thank you for everything," Emily said again, her voice filled with warmth. I feel different after this night.
I feel like we've all learned something. Sam nodded, smiling quietly.
Bet. I'm glad. That's all I ever hope for, helping in whatever small way I can. We owe you more than just thanks, Sam. You've reminded us what it means to trust, to be kind, and to notice the small things in life. Sam shook his hand firmly, his eyes calm and steady. Just remember, Brett, kindness goes both ways. If you ever need a hand, you'll find someone willing to help. Sometimes it's about passing it forward. As Sam walked back to his own house, Emily and John stood on their porch, watching him disappear into the early morning light. The fence stood strong. The night had passed without incident, and yet something else had been repaired too. Their understanding of people, trust, and human goodness. Emily turned to John, smiling softly. Phew, I think we've just met someone extraordinary. John nodded in agreement. Phew, yes, and this is a story we'll remember for a long time. That night, or rather that morning, had been unusual, unexpected, and full of quiet lessons. But for the Smiths, it was more than just a night of fence repair. It was a night that reminded them that sometimes people appear in our lives when we need them most, in ways we could never imagine. And for Sam, it was a night that reminded him why he did what he did. Because helping others without expectation or reward was never just about the work. It was about touching lives, quietly and meaningfully, one small act at a time. The morning sun had fully risen now, casting golden light over the Smiths' backyard. The fence looked perfect, sturdy, neat, and completely repaired. Birds chirped cheerfully in the trees, and the smell of dew and fresh grass filled the air. It seemed like a peaceful day, but no one realized that today's calm would soon be interrupted by an unexpected test. Sam had just finished packing up his tools when Emily stepped outside with a cup of tea. "Good morning, Sam," she said with a gentle smile. "I hope you slept well in the tent." Sam nodded, smiling faintly. "I did. It was quiet, and the fresh air was nice. Thank you for asking." Despot. John came out as well, stretching his arms. "We can't thank you enough." "This fence. It's perfect."
You really went above and beyond.
Sam waved it off.
I'm happy to help. That's all that matters.
For a few moments, everything seemed normal. Emily and John started discussing small plans for the day, like tidying up the yard and taking the dog for a walk. Sam quietly helped carry leftover wood back to his truck. But as they worked together, the wind picked up slightly, rustling the newly repaired fence. Sam noticed a small plank shifting under the pressure. He moved quickly, pressing it back into place, and realized the repairs were strong, but nature could always test them unexpectedly. Just then, a sudden sound came from the side of the yard. A loud crash, like a branch falling from a tree. Emily screamed softly, and John ran toward the noise, worried. Sam moved quickly, grabbing a flashlight.
Stay calm, he said in his steady voice.
Let's see what happened. They approached the source of the noise and saw that a large branch had fallen, narrowly missing the dog's play area and leaning against the fence. The impact had pushed part of the newly repaired section slightly outward, testing its strength.
Emily's heart raced. Oh, no! Did it?
Damage the fence? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. Sam knelt down and inspected the wood carefully.
It's fine, he said after a moment. The fence is holding.
The repairs are solid, but we should secure this branch so it doesn't fall further.
John quickly grabbed a rope and helped Sam tie the branch safely to a tree nearby. Emily stayed close, still feeling nervous.
She watched how calmly Sam handled the situation, his careful movements, and his ability to stay calm under pressure. She realized that his quiet demeanor was not weakness. It was strength. Once the branch was secure, Sam stood and smiled reassuringly. See? Everything is okay now. The fence passed its first test. Emily laughed softly, though still a little shaken.
I guess the fence wanted to challenge us right away. John chuckled too. It seems that way. But I'm glad you're here, Sam. I don't know if we could have handled this as calmly without you.
The incident left everyone a little more alert, but it also strengthened the bond between them. They realized that trust wasn't just about words, it was about action. Sam's careful handling of the situation showed them that his kindness and dedication were genuine. After a short break, Emily decided to ask Sam more about his life. She had grown curious about him during the previous night, hearing his stories and seeing his character in action.
Sam,
She said gently.
can I ask, why do you help people so much?
Ray, you never ask for anything in return. Sam smiled, looking thoughtful.
I guess I just believe that life is better when people help each other. Everyone has challenges, everyone struggles sometimes. If I can make someone's day a little easier, then I feel like I've done something meaningful. Emily nodded.
That's very rare. Most people think about themselves first. Sam shrugged. I've learned that the world doesn't change when we only think of ourselves. It changes when people act with kindness, even in small ways. Fixing fences, helping neighbors, offering a hand. These things might seem small, but they matter. John listened quietly, impressed by Sam's sincerity. You know, Sam, I think this night and morning have taught us something important, too.
We were cautious at first, unsure about letting you stay, but now we understand. But trust is worth taking a chance on. Bess.
Exactly. Trust, patience, kindness.
These are things that grow over time, not just in one moment.
As they spoke, a sudden movement caught their attention.
The dog, excited by the morning activity, had run toward the open yard and noticed a loose board near the corner of the fence. It barked loudly, jumping around and wagging its tail. Bay. Emily gasped. "Oh no! Not the fence again!" Sam quickly moved toward the dog, gently guiding it away. "It's okay, little guy," he said calmly. Breath. Then he inspected the loose section.
"This is a weak spot," he said, examining it.
"We need to reinforce it before anything else happens." John helped him hold the board steady, and Emily fetched extra nails and a hammer. Together they worked quickly, but carefully. The teamwork felt natural, almost like a small family working together to solve a problem. By the time the loose section was secured, the dog sat quietly nearby, watching as if proud of their efforts. Emily took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. "Sam, you really know what you're doing."
"I don't think I've ever seen anyone so calm under pressure."
Sam smiled softly. "Experience teaches you patience, and watching people struggle when they don't need to. Well, I try to help before things get worse." Breaths. John nodded. "I think we've learned that today. Sometimes it takes a small crisis to see who people really are." The day continued, but the earlier incident had shifted something. Emily and John felt a deeper respect for Sam, not just for his skills, but for his character. They saw how he approached challenges with calm determination, how he considered others' feelings, and how he acted without expecting praise. Around midday, the sun was high, and Sam suggested they take a break. They all sat under a tree in the yard, sipping water and watching the gentle breeze move the leaves. Emily felt comfortable enough to ask more personal questions. "Sam, can I ask about your life? You've shared some stories about helping others, but what about you? What brought you here?" Sam looked thoughtful, pausing before he spoke. "I've faced my own struggles. I lost someone very dear to me a few years ago, and after that, I realized that life is short. People need each other, and kindness is more important than anything else. Helping others became my way of honoring the people who shaped my life and taught me those lessons." Emily felt a lump in her throat. There was a quiet sadness in his voice, but also strength. She realized that his selflessness didn't come from naivety. It came from experience, from understanding loss, and from choosing to focus on what truly matters. John, sensing the emotional weight of Sam's words, nodded silently. But he didn't ask more questions. But he didn't need to. He understood the depth of Sam's character through his actions and the calm way he spoke. The afternoon passed peacefully, and the Smiths began tidying the backyard again, preparing to resume their normal routines. Sam continued to help, offering small pieces of advice about yard care and maintenance, showing patience and thoughtfulness in every action.
Emily found herself smiling quietly, realizing how rare it was to meet someone who genuinely cared without expectation. As evening approached, a sudden dark cloud passed over the yard, and the wind picked up again.
Back. Emily noticed that one of the taller branches of a tree was bending dangerously near the fence. "Sam, look!" she exclaimed. Sam immediately assessed the situation. This branch could fall if the wind gets stronger. "We need to secure it!" He quickly directed John to hold a rope, and together they tied the branch to a nearby stronger tree. Emily held the flashlight steady, her hands trembling slightly. Once again, Sam's calm and methodical approach prevented what could have been a serious accident. Emily and John realized that his presence wasn't just helpful. It was protective. They felt a mixture of gratitude, awe, and respect. After the danger passed, they all sat down on the porch, tired but relieved. Emily turned to Sam, her voice soft. "Bears, I think we underestimated you. You're more than just a helpful neighbor. You're Remarkable. Psst. Sam smiled quietly, looking at the repaired fence and the secured yard.
I am just doing what I can.
That's all any of us can do. John leaned back in his chair, shaking his head with a smile. No, Sam. You've done more than that. You've taught us about trust, patience, and courage. You've reminded us that kindness matters, even in small actions. The three of them sat in silence for a few moments, enjoying the peaceful evening. The fence stood strong, the yard was safe, and a bond had formed that went beyond the ordinary neighborly relationship. Emily finally spoke, her voice filled with emotion. I don't think we'll ever forget this day, or this night.
You've shown us something important. Something about people, trust, and life itself.
Yeah, Sam looked at her, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. I'm glad.
That's why I do it. Helping others, being there when it's needed.
Bray, it's worth it for moments like this.
As the sun began to set, they all realized that today had been more than just fence repairs or small crises.
It had been a lesson in trust, resilience, and the quiet power of a good heart. And as Sam finally packed the last of his tools, ready to leave, Emily and John knew that this day and this neighbor had changed them. They would never look at kindness the same way again, and they would always remember the man who taught them that sometimes the strongest fences aren't just made of wood. They're made of trust, understanding, and quiet courage. The next morning, the Smiths' backyard was calm and peaceful. The fence now stood strong and unshakable, each plank perfectly in place, a silent testament to Sam's skill and care. Birds sang in the trees, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and flowers. It was the kind of morning that promised a fresh start, and for the Smiths it felt like more than just a new day. It felt like a new beginning. Sam was already packing up his final tools into the back of his truck. He had stayed overnight as promised, repaired the fence, and helped the Smiths through a series of small crises that had tested the strength of the fence and their trust. Despite all this, he remained quiet and humble, working with steady hands and a calm heart. Emily stepped outside, carrying a cup of warm tea and a small thermos. Good morning, Sam, she said softly. I hope you slept well last night and that the tent was comfortable enough. Sam looked up, smiling faintly. It was fine. The fresh air was nice, and I was glad to be close to the fence. It felt right to make sure everything stayed safe.
John walked over, stretching his arms.
We can't thank you enough. Honestly, this fence, everything you did, was more than we expected.
Protected our home and even taught us a few lessons about life. Sam shook his head, still humble.
I'm just happy it helped. That's all I ever want, to make a small difference where I can. For a moment, the three of them stood in silence, taking in the calm beauty of the morning. Emily looked at Sam with a warmth in her eyes that went beyond gratitude. She had seen his kindness, his patience, and the quiet strength he carried in difficult moments. Sam, she said softly, I think we've learned more from you than we realize. You've reminded us of trust, patience, and the importance of helping others without expecting anything in return. Sam smiled, quietly touched by her words. I'm glad. Sometimes people forget that small actions can have big effects.
That's why I do what I do. It's not about recognition or thanks. It's about making life a little safer, a little better when I can.
John nodded, clearly moved. You've changed how we think about people.
Bye.
Honestly, we were hesitant at first, worried about letting you stay in the tent.
But now we see that your presence wasn't just helpful. It was protective, meaningful, and inspiring.
Sam packed the last of his tools and placed them carefully in his truck.
Bay.
I'm happy to hear that, he said softly. It means the time I spent was worthwhile. Emily handed him the thermos of tea, and John offered a small snack they had prepared.
Please, John said. You've earned this. You've worked hard, stayed here overnight, and helped us through the unexpected problems.
We insist.
Sam accepted the tea with a quiet smile. Boss, that's very kind of you. For a while, they all sat together on the porch, sipping tea and talking about small things, about the morning, about plans for the day, and about life in general. Emily and John were careful to ask Sam about his own life, curious to know more about the man who had shown them so much quiet courage. Sam shared simple stories about helping neighbors in the past, little experiences that taught him patience, responsibility. Bang. Emily listened intently, realizing that Sam's quiet actions spoke louder than words. His life wasn't glamorous, and he didn't seek attention, but he had a strength and wisdom that touched everyone around him. John, too, watched Sam with a newfound respect.
He understood that kindness wasn't about being loud or demanding recognition. It was about taking action when it mattered most.
As the morning passed, Emily and John began to tidy up the yard, putting away leftover materials and cleaning up the small mess from the previous day. Sam helped silently, offering advice when needed but letting them take part in the work. Emily realized that this act of cooperation had strengthened more than just the fence. It had strengthened their connection as a small team, learning to work together and trust one another. Once everything was clean and organized, Sam stood near the repaired fence and looked at it with quiet satisfaction.